Good early afternoon. We are live, and welcome to the Blue Plate Special. I'm Andy Andrews. You've joined us in Orange Beach, Alabama at Wisdom Harbor Studios here at the Wharf, home of the world-famous escalator statues. If you're new to us today and you're on Facebook, please click your notification button and put your notifications on your phone. That way, when we go live here at Wisdom Harbor, you will be notified. And also share. Please share. Margaret Davis Haupt from Northeast Mississippi. I'm sure you have shared. Hagen Mack, hey buddy, how are you? In Colorado, Judith DeWitt, hello. Kat Hooker, you have shared. Happy Wednesday, everybody. It's odd to be doing this on a Wednesday, but we're doing one show this week, so we put it right in the middle. Sandra Mendonca, Searcy, Arkansas, home of Harding University, where you ate your mascot. Patricia Clapp, Christy Woods, my sister, Chris Comer, Ron Reams. I like doing that voice. That is Ron's broadcast voice. Hey, if you're on YouTube, please click that subscribe button. Okay, that would really help us. And if you could call 5 people and get them to click their subscribe button for the Andy Andrews thing, that would be great too. We'd really appreciate that. Bob Woodall, call Bob from Dothan, Alabama. How about you? And Kevin Perkins is here, old man. How you doing, buddy? Heather Olson, and I'm assuming it's good weather in Salt Lake. How you like the shirt? Like the shirt? The shirt is a Quicksilver model from Sand Dollar Lifestyles. It is a cornerstone of the Wharf. And they have tons of shirts. I mean, they've got tons of everything. They've got grills and shoes and shirts and people walking around in there. So you need to, if you're visiting us, you need to go see the people at Sand Dollar Lifestyles. And also come visit us, okay? We would really appreciate it. Okay. I'm actually not here. I'm not. You think I'm here because you can see me, but I didn't actually just do that. I'm gone. And I just miss y'all so much that I just wanted to act like it was live, even though we're taping. I just wanted to have something for you on Wednesday. And I just remembered those names, and I just wanted to say hey to you and talk about the Wharf and the escalator statue and the shirt and Sand Dollar and Bob Woodall and Harding University where they ate their mascot. But we were just kidding, because this is pre-recorded entertainment. And I'll be back next week. And will I be live next week? I will? Okay. I'll be alive next week. So, yep. Were you fooled? Were you fooled? Because I just remembered those names because I see them a lot. I appreciate you guys who I see a lot. And today, what I'm going to do is I decided I would read something that probably you haven't heard, but it has some good characters, and I'm going to read a chapter from the book The Lost Choice. Now, this was the book that I wrote right after I wrote The Traveler's Gift. This was the second novel that I wrote. And a lot of people, it's still their favorites. It's called The Lost Choice, A Legend of Personal Discovery. And before I go into the chapter 5 for you, I thought I would read the inside flaps and tell you what it's about. Dory Chandler is a journalist who has always had a taste for mysteries. Curious about the strange rock her son has found, she takes it to Dylan Langford, an expert on antiquities who works at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. When the language inscribed on the artifact is translated, a far-reaching mystery begins to unravel. This normal family's life becomes anything but normal as each piece of evidence sheds additional light on the object's significance. The Chandlers may have unearthed a fragment of one of the most profound relics in mankind's history and the key to understanding the extraordinary achievements of esteemed men and women throughout time, who seem to have been profoundly affected by the message the object bears. What power resides in this seemingly unimportant piece of bronze? Who passed its secrets on through the centuries? And why has the object appeared now, in this way, in this time and place? Weaving a thread of good and evil through history, The Lost Choice follows the story of an ancient relic and offers a parable of the hidden potential of the human heart. Okay, let me tell you what's happening. There is a prologue where it's like thousands of years ago, and it's a camel caravan, and they're attacked. And this boy, his father hides him under one of the camels that dies immediately, and gives him an object. And the boy, but before he gave him the object, the man put it on the ground, and he hacked it into 4 pieces and gave it to the boy and drug the camel over him and hid him. And so when the boy got out, everybody was dead. And the prologue ends. And so then we go present day, and it's Denver, Colorado, and Mark and Dory's son finds something in the creek behind their house and brings it in, and it looks like it has writing on it or something, and it's just, they can't tell that it looks old, but she takes it to a museum, to Dylan Langford, who runs it through a machine and finds out, they carbon date it and it is old, but they don't know what to do with it or what it says. The guy, he translates the little bit that is there on it, but then days later, they see in the Denver newspaper a picture of an old woman who is from Fordyce, Arkansas, and her picture is hit the syndicate, because it's in all the newspapers in America, because she's like 104 years old. And so they were just looking at the picture, just glancing at it, but then they saw on the bookcase behind the woman in the picture, there was an object that looked just like the one their kid found in the creek. And so Dory is a journalist, but Mark, her husband, is a police detective for the Denver Police Department. And so he has a case that he's got to go to Memphis on, and they go to Memphis. She goes with him because they're going to take a day and drive to Fordyce from Memphis and see this old woman and find out, what's going on. So we're dropping in the middle of the story. This is chapter 5. And there's a little bit in Memphis, and then we go to Fordyce. But here we go. Chapter 5 in The Lost Choice, Memphis, Tennessee, October. It was a classic case of hurry up and wait, and waiting was not an easy thing for Dory Chandler to do. 8 days after her conversation with Braxton Pringle, their flight had taken off on time at 7:52 Wednesday morning, but that was 2 days ago. So here it was Friday, and she was waiting again. Mark was using the rental car, so she was stuck by herself in a hotel on a service road of I-40 that was located next to nothing. They would drive on to Fordyce this afternoon and check into a hotel there. Tomorrow, Saturday, was all blocked out to spend whatever time they could with Mrs. Bounds. Mark should be back any time, Dory thought, as she flopped onto the unmade bed and contemplated taking a shower. Instead, she got back up and poured the last of the coffee from the room's pot and started a new one brewing. When Mark arrived, Dory was showered, dressed, packed, and ready to roll. "Okay," she said, clapping her hands together and headed for the door. "Let's do it." "Hey, Dory, give me a second to take a breath. At least say hello or something." "You're right," she said, walking over to him and giving him a hug. "I'm sorry. I've just been bored out of my mind." "I'm not sure the boredom caused that," Mark pouted. "Give me just a minute and we'll get out of here. Have you eaten lunch?" "No," she replied. "I thought we'd grab something on the way. How did it go with your meetings?" "It didn't," Mark said from the bathroom. "This is my last trip to Memphis. For this case, anyway. Trust me, those kids are not here. Not that I have any clue where to go next." He cursed. It was one word, under his breath, but loud enough for Dory to hear from where she was sitting on the bed. She studied Mark as he emerged from the bathroom, toweling water from his face. She was well aware that he took every case personally. The ones that ended badly or continued past a certain point with little progress sometimes made him physically ill. Dory worried about him, especially when he dealt with missing children. But less than an hour later, Mark was back to his old self. Before the green Ford Taurus hit the on-ramp to the interstate, they had connected with Dory's mother and their son Michael. The two had just come back from a movie, and Dory silently said a thank you prayer that they had been home when she called. Michael jabbered away, telling his dad all about the movie as Dory watched Mark's anxiety melt away. By the time they hung up, Mark was beaming. Fordyce, Arkansas. "It's raining," Mark said as he opened the hotel room curtains the next morning. "Do you want me to get my shower first?" Dory did not move. "Dory, wake up. It's 7:30. Do you want me to go ahead and take my shower?" Dory never understood why Mark didn't just take a shower. Why was it, she wondered, that he felt the need to get her permission? Just take it. Do it. Be first, she wanted to scream. Be my guest. "Dory, are you awake?" Mark shook her lightly. "I'll go ahead and take my shower, okay?" Dory clenched her teeth and mumbled, "Great." "What did you say?" Dory almost levitated off the bed into Mark's face. "I said take a shower. Take it," she said, and fell back, flinging the covers over her head in one swift move. "Gee," Mark said as he hurried away. "What's wrong with you?" 15 minutes later, Mark emerged carefully from the bathroom. He slowly eased his head around the corner to see his wife sitting in the lounge chair beside the bed. She had a cup of coffee in her hand and a smile on her face. "Good morning, dear," she said sweetly. Mark made a show of glancing around the room. "Is it you?" he asked. "I wanted to make sure, because a few minutes ago there was a psychopath in the bed." "That wasn't me, dear," Dory said. "That was Doreen. See?" She held her cup toward Mark. "It's me, Dory. You know that mean old Doreen doesn't drink coffee." This was one of Mark and Dory's games of apology. No need to hash things out in a long, drawn-out examination of who said what, who said it first, or why. Harsh words? Blame it on Touraine, Dory's evil twin. It was simple, it was quick, and it worked. After coffee and muffins in the hotel lobby, they ran through the parking lot to the Taurus. The temperature was in the mid-40s, which added to the miserable conditions as they scrambled across the uneven asphalt, avoiding huge puddles of water. Mark clutched a piece of paper in his fist, directions to Mrs. Bounds' house given to them over the phone by Braxton, the boy who worked at the local newspaper. Soon Mark and Dory had the Taurus nosing along Jug Creek Road. "Didn't Braxton say she lived across from the church?" Mark asked. "Well, there it is." He parked the car next to the curb across the street from the Mount Zion Baptist Church in front of a small, freshly painted house with dark green shutters that matched the porch. The numbers above the door, 1022, confirmed the location. Dory took a deep breath. Mark laughed. "Are you nervous?" "I am," she replied. "I've interviewed the governor and wasn't nervous. I'm not sure why I feel this way now, but it seemed important somehow. Let's go," she said, and got out of the car. As they walked up the neat brick walkway to the house, Mark pointed out the fall garden that grew in the side yard. Despite the cool weather, it was lush with turnips, cauliflower, beets, carrots, huge collards. Even tomatoes still hung from their vines. Not a weed to be seen. Climbing the steps to the porch, they noticed that the flower beds on either side of the steps were planted in vegetables as well. "The whole neighborhood must eat from this garden," Dory whispered. Mark nodded in agreement. They stood facing a front door festooned with an autumnal wreath. Bright yellow ornamental gourds intertwined with red and black Indian corn hung on the clean white wood surface. There was no doorbell, so Dory knocked. Almost immediately, the door swung open to reveal a tiny old woman with hair like ivory. Her black eyes danced against the contrast of her skin, which was a shade of dark caramel. Dory was about to introduce herself when the old lady broke into a grin and said, "Oh, girl, I can tell we gonna be friends. You the same size as me." Dory's eyes widened. Mark tried to suppress a sudden snicker. Then they all burst into laughter. The woman opened the door wide and said, "Come on in now. We let my heat out." As they entered, Dory said, "Mrs. Bounds, I'm Dory Hold on, baby," interrupted the old woman. "First of all, I'm May. Miss Bounds is my mama, and she been dead for 87 years. So you and the police call me May." Dory's eyes were wide open. She stole a look at Mark, who appeared on the verge of laughter again after the police remark. May had pronounced the word police. "Second thing is," she continued, "I already know who you are. You are Dory. And you," she smiled at Mark, "you the police. But I'm going to call you Mark. Now get on in here." And with that, she turned and shuffled into her small living room. "Sit down right there, baby." May directed Dory to a couch. "Mark, you go in the kitchen, right through that door, and get this little girl whatever she wants to drink. Get me a cup of coffee. I like it black. Pot's on the stove." Dory smiled up at her husband from the couch. "I'll have coffee too, Mark," she said, and thought his eyebrows might merge with his hairline. He appeared to be that surprised. But meekly he mumbled a "yes, ma'am," and went through the door May had indicated. Dory watched as the old woman eased herself into the same rocking chair she had seen in the newspaper. Next to the rocking chair was the source of brutal heat, an old gas heater. Oblivious to the temperature inside the house, which Dory judged to be almost 80 degrees, a plain white sweater was draped across her shoulders. Dory was surprised, almost to the point of shock, that a woman as old as Maymay didn't appear to be as decrepit as she'd imagined. Her face was wrinkled, but not to an extreme, and her posture, though somewhat stooped, seemed excellent. Even the skin on her hands was devoid of the age spots afflicting Dory's own mother, who was still in her 60s. And Maymay's hair, though bone white, was thick and healthy. It was braided and rolled into a bun on the back of her head. Dory had also noted that her movements were slow, but not those of a person tormented by arthritis or rheumatism. Directly behind her was the bookcase, including the object that had prompted the trip. Dory had spotted it the minute she walked into the room. The relic was propped on a tiny framing easel, and something the newspaper photograph had not revealed, it was attached to a stiff leather cord. "You have a nice place, Maymay," Dory began. "How long have you lived here?" "This Christmas it'll be 41 years, she answered. "My husband built this old house with his brother. Just the two of 'em. It was a pretty place. Gerald passed on not long after that. 70 years old, still a young man. Lord, Lord, I loved that Gerald." "Do you have any children?" "No, baby, we never did. Mammy got no family at all. All Gerald's people, my side too, they're gone. But the folks in Ford I see after Mammy. This house paint, my pretty porch, that's all the sweetness of this town. There's a little white boy even come out and cut Mamay's grass." Mark entered with a cup of coffee in each hand and presented one to the old lady, then to Dory, and accepted their thanks. "Mrs. Bounds," Dory began. "Maymay," the old woman said. "Maymay." Dory was certainly nervous again. "When we saw your picture in the paper, we were curious about that thing." She pointed to the object on the bookshelf. Maymay twisted in her chair and with a questioning glance picked up the item her guest had indicated. "This?" she asked, holding it up for them to see. For the next few minutes, Maymay sat quietly as the Chandlers told her the story of the relic their son had found. They showed her pictures of Michael and their home. Finally, Dory removed their object from her purse. She unwrapped it from a handkerchief and saw Maymay's eyebrows raise as Dory placed it in her hands. Neither Mark nor Dory had gotten a close look at the item from Maymay's shelf. Mark was hesitant to be too pushy. Years of training and experience as a detective had convinced him that it was a mistake to move too quickly. It often caused a person to close up, even become frightened, though he wasn't sure anyone could frighten this woman. He put his arm round Dory's shoulder and eased her back as Maymay examined the two pieces. "Easy, slow down," he directed his thoughts to his wife. "Maymay, can I get you more coffee?" Mark said as he purposefully stood. "I know Dory could use some." He shot Dory a look that said, "Be careful," and walked to the kitchen after both women gave him their cups. The silence from the living room was deafening as Mark poured the coffee. Returning with the now filled cups, Mark smiled at Dory, sitting stiffly on the couch. She was watching the old woman's every move. Maymay had a habit of rolling her dentures around in her mouth when she was deep in thought. Mark had noted the tendency earlier, but now the plates were clicking audibly. Her concentration appeared to be absolute as she turned the pieces first one way, then another. "What do you think, Maymay?" Mark said softly as he sat back down. She jerked her head up as if she had forgotten they were there. "Sure do look like another food stone," she said, and reached toward Dory to pass the objects to her. "See what you reckon, baby." Dory took the pieces, but before she gave them the barest glimpse, Mark asked the obvious question for both of them. "What did you call it, May? A food stone?" "That's right. It looked just like my granddaddy's food stone." Dory examined the two objects, which as far as she could tell were almost identical. The only difference she could discern was a degree of variation on the edges. One side was rounded, curled over, as if one had folded a piece of bread, and a slight alteration in the script. And, of course, there was the attached leather cord. Dory could see that in the corner of the object a small opening, a natural one she assumed, had been bored completely through to the other side, creating a tiny tunnel through which the cord ran. "Did you get this from your grandfather?" Mark continued gently. "No," May said, taking a sip of her coffee. "I got it after my Uncle G passed on. It was left to him by my granddaddy. He had it round his neck when they brought him over from Africa." Dory started to ask a question, but Mark nudged her, urging silence in hopes that the old woman would continue to talk. She did. "My daddy was called James. He was from Missouri and died with the smallpox when I was a baby girl. Not a lot of paper on black folk back then, but he was supposed to have been 21 or 2 when he passed. Well, with Daddy gone, Uncle G took that place in my life. He stood up for me when I married Gerald. Uncle G was there for me till he passed on himself in 1943. May paused, remembering. She nodded to herself and squinted as if examining the image in her mind's eye. As Mark and Dory waited, she finished her coffee, and then, seemingly struck by a recollection, May leaned forward and motioned for the object. Taking it from Dory, she draped the cord over her wrist and held it up to the light. "I ain't never changed this string," she said. "That's the same strip of leather my Uncle G wore. Might be the same one my granddaddy wore. Uncle G sure kept it round his neck like his daddy." Earlier, noticing the hole where the cord passed through the object, Dory had recalled Dylan's assertion that the object he had inspected was hollow. "The story I know from my mama is, when the slave catchers brought my granddaddy to America, he had it on him, and for some reason they never took it off. Took everything else but left a rock hanging on the man's neck. Sold him in Baton Rouge. Stood him on the auction block naked as a jaybird. Took the man's clothes but didn't touch that rock. Ever. Uncle G told me that his daddy, my granddaddy, had it on till the day he got killed. Killed in a logging accident in Missouri. Of course, some find it hard to say accident about somebody what didn't volunteer for hauling logs in the first place." May stared hard at Mark, gauging how he would react to her last statement. Seeing nothing but sympathy in his eyes, she went on. "Now, Uncle G and his mama, they lived on another place. The white man what owned them was a good man. When my granddaddy, that's Uncle G's daddy, died, the white man, he got a hold of this thing." She indicated the item in Mark's hand. "And sometime when he was 2 or 3 years old, the white man put it around the neck of that little child, Uncle G. When G growed up a bit, the man told him that he figured this thing to be special. Said it was only for Uncle G. The man said it was a gift from a daddy to his boy." Dory took the object from Mark and compared the two again. "May, did your Uncle G call this a food stone?" "Yes, he did," she said. "He said it was his inspiration." Mark scooted to the edge of the couch and leaned forward a bit. "Why do you suppose he called it that, a food stone?" "'Cause that's what it is." She turned to Dory. "This boy ain't been listening to my story." They all chuckled at Maymay's pretended exasperation. Then to Mark, she continued, "Everybody knew it was a food stone. It's just something everybody knew, or at least used to know. Now I'm talking about my people, you hear? That plantation my granddaddy worked, it was supposed to have been some fine place. When he got killed, the whole thing just fell apart. Crops didn't yield, weeds took over. White folks said it was on account of the weather, but Mama said the slaves knew it's 'cause they lost the food stone." "What happened when your uncle got it?" "Just what you thinking happened," she said smugly. "The plantation G was on bloomed like a Garden of Eden. All the black folk on that place were so excited that the food stone had come to one of their own on account of they knew what it meant. The white man, he didn't put no stock in it, but the black folks knew they'd be eating from the excess, and they was happy. That's the story my mama always told anyhow. And from that day, anybody with the stone, they got a green thumb like you ain't never seen." "You said Uncle G wore this," Mark said. "Did he have a green thumb when he grew up?" For a moment, Maymay paused. With virtually no expression on her face, she stared at Mark, then said simply, "Yes." "Do you, or did he," Dory tried to find the correct words, "did anyone ever tell you this was script, writing?" "I ain't never talked to nobody about it. And Uncle G never said if he knew. But I figured it was some kind of writing, all them marks on the side." At that point, Dory told her about the translation of the object that had been found in their backyard. She pointed out her observation that the etchings on her food stone were identical except for a small section. While Maymay retrieved a large magnifying glass from her bedroom, Dory arranged the two objects side by side on the ottoman. For the rest of the morning they talked and examined the pieces of the past that had brought them into each other's company. Dory related Dillon's analysis to Maymay and the chemical conclusion of leaded bronze. She was astonished to learn, after all these years, that her food stone wasn't a stone at all. Mark drew an exact copy of the script from the food stone on paper and went outside to fetch his cell phone from the rental car. He intended to track down Dillon and see about faxing the copy to him in order to have it quickly translated. When he returned, Mark reported that he had indeed reached their friend at a restaurant in Los Angeles. "Abby is out there too. He gave me the number of their hotel so we can fax this to them." He brandished the page. "But they're at a convention. It'll be about 3 hours before she's out of her session. So," he shrugged. "You want to go to lunch?" Dory said to Maymay. "To a restaurant?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." "Lord, just let me get my coat," Maymay laughed. "Say, can we go to a bakery downtown?" "Just show us the way," Mark grinned. On their way out the door, Maymay said, "Help me down the steps, boy," to Mark, and then exclaimed, "Look here at Maymay's garden. Uncle G wasn't the only one with a green thumb." As they walked around the side of the house, Mark and Dory oohed and awed while the proud old lady pointed out her obvious success with virtually everything she planted. A few minutes later, they were almost to the car when Maymay suddenly stopped. Thinking something was wrong, Mark and Dory stopped too. "Are you okay, Maymay?" Dory asked. "Oh, yes, baby girl," she replied. "I'm as fine as can be." Then she cocked her head, popped her dentures forward and back one quick time, and said, "But I just had me a thought." She grinned. "All the talking we been doing, and you ain't never asked me what Uncle G's real name was. The man was famous." And with that, she said, "Now help Maymay in the car." It's chapter 5. So you got an idea who Uncle G was? I haven't read that in a long time. I think I'm going to I think I'm going to take it and read the whole thing. So, I loved Mei Mei. I love that character. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, I'll see you. Okay? Thank you, guys, and bye-bye.